So those of you that have done a little bit of research and know what the powers that be are in the process of doing to our economy right now, as I speak, how long do you think this has been happening for?
What I didn't realize then was, and I realized shortly thereafter, in October of 1997, that's the beginning of the 1998 fiscal year, huge, enormous amounts of money started disappearing from the U.S. government. And literally, by the time of 9/11, there was 4.1 trillion missing from DOD and HUD. And if you remember, the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld stood up and basically said, he did a press conference and he said, there's 2.3 trillion in undocumentable adjustments last year at DOD, and we're missing money, and it's worse than terrorism. And then, of course, I was working with a reporter on a huge story that would have published that Friday after 9/11 about the missing money. We'd been working on it for over a year, and she'd done 9 stories. I'd helped her do 9 stories because we were trying to get the General Accounting Office, now they call it the General Accountability Office, but we were trying to get both Congress and the GAO to do something about it and to try and stop it. And anyway, as you know.
Yeah, priorities changed.
Right.
For reasons that we still don't understand. And
I understand.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the average person, I think, sort of thinks, well, maybe there were 19 guys from Saudi or something.
I call the Patriot Act the Control and Concentration of Cash Flow Act. Because one of the things that happened after 9/11, if you look at the history of the black budget and sort of secret financing that the government uses for secret and classified projects, that pot of money had grown and grown and grown, and it had become very dysfunctional to try and get that money. Mortgage fraud, I believe, was one of the biggest sources, and that's why what I was doing sort of went into the heart of the problem. But the Patriot Act and that whole process was very successful at moving a lot more money onto the budget. In other words, it made it much easier to get enormous amounts of money for the national security state as a result of what happened. Now, whenever you do an operation like this, you stack functions, so it's only one of many goals. But it was very successful.
Boy, it all went right over my head. I thought it was all about Muhammad Atta. I had no idea.
So do you think the left and the right are working together to steal from the American people, to suck every resource that we have dry before they pull the rug? You don't think that this current administration would do something like that, do you? Do you guys remember this guy right here? How he unalived himself, he burned himself, don't recommend that. How quickly he was labeled a conspiracy theorist. Do you guys remember this right in front of the Trump trial? Do you remember that? Do you know what was said in his manifesto? I didn't know this until I saw this video.
Does anyone else remember that man that tragically took his own life a couple years ago by setting himself on fire in front of a federal building? He left a letter calling it an extreme act of protest. He was really quickly dismissed by the media as a crazy conspiracy theorist. I just went back and read his letter, and it's actually really fascinating to read a couple years down the road. This guy had worked on congressional campaigns before and closely with government, so he was not a nobody. He names Clinton as a close associate of E, who shall not be named on this app. He says everything in politics has been just total theater ever since Clinton versus H.W. Bush. He said they're all working together. Clinton and H.W. Bush were working together. Bush and Gore were working together, and even Trump and Biden. He said it's all smoke and mirrors, and they're working together to just plan a fascist coup. He said the elites know that capitalism is not sustainable, so that they have basically an exit plan, and that they were using cryptocurrency as a Ponzi scheme to just transfer a bunch of wealth, which is especially interesting considering we know that Donald Trump has made over $1 billion in cryptocurrency ventures. He said Harvard is just a breeding ground for these elites, and that the creator of The Simpsons went to Harvard, basically knew all of the inside information, and that they were using The Simpsons as propaganda to desensitize everybody. The letter is still able to be found on Google. You can go search it yourself. I'll put his name in the caption. For legal purposes, I'm not saying he was totally right, but a very interesting read.